Welcome back to the channel and the broadcast, Recovered Addict Paul Scotland. I'm really pleased to be joined today by Matt.
My name's Matt, and I'm an addict from Derby.
Brilliant. Really glad you're here, Matt. So there's lots of resources on the channel, folks. If you're here and you're new to CA, 12-step recovery, a lot of action on WhatsApp, a lot of resources, a lot of meeting links. If you want to be added to any healthy WhatsApp groups, feel free to put your first name, your number in the chat, and we will definitely add you. If you're interested in sponsorship, we maintain current male and female sponsorship lists, which we can send you privately. So again, put your number below. If you've any questions or comments, or you want to keep us right on what we have to say, then by all means, feel free to write in the chat below where you see this. If you'd like to appear on the podcast and share your story, read a bit from the book and share, get in touch. There's no problem there. We'll make it happen. Also, there's now over 100 broadcasts on this channel, on each of the steps, on each of the traditions. I think there's over 40 personal stories. There's also podcasts in Tire Psychic Change, Spiritual Malady, the ABCs of Addiction, and more. There's kind of like podcasts we've done with several folk that are similar to a meeting. So, get involved, have a look at the videos page on this channel and see what other podcasts are there for you to listen to and support you in your journey. So without further ado, it gives me great pleasure to hand over to Matt, who's very kindly agreed to come and share his story with us today. So over to you, Matt.
Thanks very much, Paul. And good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everyone. So my name's Matt and I'm an addict. Thank you for giving me the opportunity and a platform to be able to share. And thank you for your service, Paul. An unsung hero, very much within those communities. I acknowledge to anybody listening to their first main share, newcomers, people back from relapses, most important people in rooms. You're welcome, and I hope and I pray that this story can go some way to help him, if only a little, for people. So I'm going to start off by reading from the big book. It's after I went through my 12 steps and got into what I think's the meat and potatoes of recovery, the bit after you've completed it, and completed the steps. By no means completed recovery. I started to read different stories from the back of the book. It talks about the various different accounts that are there, and some of these are huge identification I have with those. But there's one particular passage that really does resonate with me. And that's so if you want to read along, it starts. It's the final line on page 350. It's from a story. It might have been worse. So I'll read now. It's so it now became necessary to have noon drinks. At first, just 2, then gradually more. My hours of work were flexible, so that returning to the office was not always important. Then I became careless and returned sometimes when I shouldn't have. This worried me. The last 2 years of my drinking, my entire personality changed to a cynical, intolerant, and arrogant person, completely different from my normal self. It was at this stage of my life that resentments came in, resenting anyone and everyone who might interfere with my personal plans and ways of doing things, especially for any interference with my drinking. I was full of self-pity. I will never know all the people I hurt, all the friends I abused, the humiliation of my family, the worry of my business associates, or how far-reaching it was. I continue to be surprised by people I meet who say, "You haven't had a drink for a long time, have you?" The surprise to me is the fact that I didn't know that they knew my drinking had gotten out of control. That is where we are really fooled. We think we can drink to excess without anyone's knowing it. Everyone knows it. The only one we are fooling is ourselves. We rationalize and excuse our conduct beyond all reason. That stands out to me a lot, that story. Even everything from the latter 2 years of my using and drinking career, and what I turned into: cynical, intolerant, arrogant, living in my own self-will, and having no solution. I had nothing that would give me peace, that would offer me serenity. I truly understand today the term using against my own will, and what that meant to me what that meant to my family, and I'm still learning what that means to my associates, my friends, everybody that I've touched within the period of time that I was using. So a bit of background to me. So I was born in Sheffield. I moved to Derby when I was 13. I've got a pretty normal background, right? My parents divorced in my teens. It's not unusual nowadays. I use that very much as an excuse to act out. I use something else as I look back now. I think about that and the manipulation of being able to act the way I wanted, but use somebody else or something else as an excuse. I went through school when I came here and was bullied. I was a little bit overweight as a kid. I then went completely the opposite direction. Took up boxing, took up football. I mainly took it up originally to just fit in. That's a bit of a story for me, and I'll come to that later. But helped me gain a bit of confidence, and the latter in football. I enjoyed the first part of what I'd call a bit of a football career. I scored a couple of goals for professional teams. I've been on Sky Sports. I think if I look back now at what sport gave me, it fed my addiction. I was addicted to winning. And winning makes me sound egotistical, but I was addicted to getting my own way. I was addicted to being able to impact outcomes. I was addicted to being able to will my way through my abilities into whatever situations that I could control. So as I came out of sport, classic injuries, etc., I carried on drinking. I started drinking actually in when in my teens, like 13, 14. This was early on to fit in. I drank on parks with friends, all really to build my stock, impress my peers, impress girls, do all of that sort of stuff. And where I was brought up, it wasn't unusual for people to drink, as it's not in most places. But I was brought up in a little miners' village, and like Sunday lunch would always have a shandy, even from an early age. People like my granddad and stuff would just pass it to me, and you just drink it, and it was the norm for me. That drinking culture, going out with our mates at the weekend, playing football or playing sports, and having that camaraderie. And I enjoyed it for a long time. I really enjoyed it for a long time. And that's many moons ago, and back when it was fun. And I didn't actually try a drug until I was 20 years old. And again, some of the best memories I have are when I was using. But they were a long time ago. And I don't want to forget those good times, because some of my best friends, some of the people around me are still use that, and I accept them for doing that. But I have to work really hard today. I have to wheel the evidence trolley out to show me that my recent experience of using only causes pain. Only causes pain. So so I think it's also worth mentioning I was never brought up around drugs. Crikey, my parents were they barely tried anything. I think my dad might have smoked a joint once upon a time, and that was about it. Never touched anything again. And if I fast forward then sort of 10 years or so, I became I started to lose all my control. Well, I think I'd already lost control, but I started to really lose control in around 2020, 5 years ago. And I became a daily user. I'd moved into a new house. It was around the corner from one of my best friends. COVID hit, and I was working, but I was having to do an hour or two a day. And all of a sudden, there just became this, not an excuse, but this opportunity to use. I used it as an opportunity, and then became an excuse for me to be able to use. And I class myself as one of the lucky ones, right? At this stage, before it got bad, I was able to use my partner. There was moderation for a period of time, and And then quickly I fell out of moderation and started to do a lot of different things that which I tried to tell myself I wasn't an addict for a long time. I had these 3 rules, that I wouldn't lie to my partner about using, that I wouldn't use at work, and I wouldn't use alone. Now the irony is that when I break one of those rules, I'm going to break all of them. So in order for me to, if I start to lie to my partner, and at that point I did, and I began lying about using, I would have to use at work because I'd be away from my partner, or I'd just be away generally. And if I was terrified that people would tell her, so I'd start to use alone. And it's that kind of cycle broke really, really quickly. And the second I stepped over that threshold, became really difficult. Well, at no point am I ever going to regain control, but it became really difficult to accept that for me. So I continued to use, and like I said, I'd be using with friends, and then running off to use on my own. I'd be using alongside my partner and friends in the village, and and then I'd be going off again to do it on my own. I was having this 24/7 party, and it was Matt's party. And only I was invited to certain parts of this, which is a really sad reality when I look back at it. And I started to realise, or I realised there was a problem, and it took me about another 18 months or so to really identify that. I remember that I was at my sister-in-law's house, which is about a 25-30 minute drive away from where I live. And we were there for Christmas. And I just paid an extortionate amount of money to get hold of some cocaine. And this is 4 times the going rate. It was Christmas. I got my dealer to come out of town. I'd already done all of my usual. I've taken the dog out. I've done all the things that would give me a reason to leave the house. And I made an excuse, and I managed to get out. And I remember, a lot of people will be familiar with this, I'm sure, but that excitement you get, it was replaced with anxiety. When you're about to pick up. I remember bashing it on the way back, and getting back to my sister-in-law's house. And I remember going into the bathroom to use it, and I remember looking at myself in the mirror and just thinking, this is getting a bit out of control. And I couldn't accept that. I couldn't accept that for a long time. And through that, the same thing happened, funnily enough, in 2022 and 2023, and continued. And alongside that, there was period. Whilst it might be that at that point I believed I was losing myself, I was losing the ability to choose. There was also then the pain of I'm lucky enough to have 2 wonderful young children, 2 little girls, and they didn't understand at this point. Crikey, they were in 2022. One of them was 6 months old. In 2023, I had a 12-month-old and an 18-month-old and a 1-month-old. And I was whispering these sweet promises to them that Daddy will stop this time. This is the last time. New Year will come and I'll stop. And it's those broken promises that hurt me the most. Because that's what I'm capable of being. That's what I'm capable of doing. I'm capable of lying to the 2 people in this world that I absolutely love the most. And have nothing but they love me, right? They know me for what I am, and they love me as I am. But I still, it goes back to that point of no human power is ever going to stop me from using. Nothing in this world that I can physically see is going to stop me from using. And through my using, I concocted a lot of different ways to use. I'd balance myself out by taking weed alongside it, by taking various other drugs. I drank a lot alongside it. And my using towards the end, it became it became like military precision. Where I live, there's a pub that half a mile away, and I knew every night I'd walk the dog, and I'd already take him out for about an hour to an hour and a half, and I'd go on this walk, and these are like checkpoints. I would pick up one thing, get to the pub, drink, pick up another, another dealer to drop off in the car park, pick something else up, and all that while within that 90-minute maximum window I was using what some people use in a week. I was using what some people like. It's frightening when I think back on it. And that was just the purest of manipulation, right? At points I was using myself, I was using excuses, I was using people. Oh, Christ, I was using my dog as a manipulating reason to use, because he's not the most active little chap. And I can manipulate that in order to give myself a reason to be out there, and give myself a reason to use, and I couldn't stop it. I couldn't stop it. The same things I would wake up every day thinking, I'm going to stop today. And an hour later, God, I'd be lucky if I got an hour later. I'd already be looking at when the dealer was online, when I had various different people that I would go to, and there'd always roughly be somebody available. And it became tiring. There was a few things that exhausted me in using. One was the planning that went into it, the fear that came after using, the concealment and manipulation to stop people, or to what I thought was stopping people seeing through me. Turns out people saw through me long before I came into recovery. And the other thing that made me, I just tired. I wore so many masks when I was using, and I've been guilty of this a long time in my life. I think for a long time I've never truly been happy with the person that I am. And I would, it was like I'm packing my bag for work in the morning, and I would have to remember to bring mask A, B, D, F, G. I'd have to bring those 5 masks, and then when I got home, I'd swap them out for C and D, and I'd swap them out for all of these different versions that I was the perception that I gave to people. This version of Matt that people thought they saw, which just wasn't genuine. It wasn't genuine, and I wasn't genuine, and I was so desperately out of love with myself, and desperate's a good point, because I became desperate for recovery. I became desperate to stop. I didn't know how at this point, but I was desperate. And as things got towards the middle of last year, so my last using date was the 1st of August last year. And as it approached sort of the 2-3 month mark away from that, things started to really, really get bad. I was missing payments on the house. I was stealing money from, and when I say stealing, I was telling them it was for something else, and manipulating a situation, so that I could get money from loved ones in my family. I was taking money from my kids' bank accounts. All of those things. The financial part of this, though, isn't the most terrifying piece for me. I emotionally ran through and devastated my wife, and I'm lucky today that person has stood by me. I'm incredibly lucky. But I tortured her emotionally, both intentionally and unintentionally. I would make her feel tiny in order to enable my using. I think back now, and I think to the person that I married, what they were like last year, and they were a shell. The same way I was. I wasn't anywhere near the person I was. And we were both broken. We're both broken, and at points the book promises this, but I will become dangerously antisocial in my using, and that is because if I break things down, and I'm not lying to myself about it, I consume drugs like an animal. I consume drink like an animal. I have not qualified myself to take and use drugs and drink in the same way as normal people. I'd isolate myself, not just from friends, not just from family. I'd isolate myself from work. I'd have to be at home to make sure I could intercept the postman, just in case a letter was going to turn up that might put an end to my using, that might, and to go back to that story originally, that might interfere with my drinking and my using. I would put myself out in order for that to happen. And then came like a period in time at the end of last year, the middle of last year, where I walked into recovery on the 26th of July last year. And I give you that date alongside my last using date because I was terrified of recovery when I first looked at it. Absolutely terrified. Because I was no longer in control. I was being tested. These things were happening. My wife had had enough. People around me had had enough. I had no choice. There was nowhere else for me to turn but to turn to a form of recovery. So I went to a drug and alcohol centre close to me. I still ran off and used after that. Classic booking a hotel, sniffing my life away. And on that day, I actually thought I was close to going over the top. But I'm lucky I'm still here. After that, I recovered. Just walking into a recovery center wasn't enough for me. It was more. Someone mentioned CA. They mentioned Cocaine Anonymous, and I went to my first meeting on August the 5th last year. And I'll be honest with you, I sat in that meeting. It's my first meeting, and I talked earlier about being desperate. I wasn't that desperate at this point. I thought I'd hit rock bottom, but I hadn't. I was considering ordering in that meeting. I'd actually, I'll be really honest. I'd put the text in. It was going to happen, and something stopped me, which I now believe is a power of it was my higher power, which I choose to call God. But I was considering it. I thought about doing it, and I didn't. And from that day forth, from the 1st of August last year, including the civ of that meeting, I was sober. But Christ, did it get worse? Like, it got worse. The next 5 or 6 weeks were like the worst of my life. I was a dry addict. I was a dry drunk. All my defects were there for everybody to see. My behavior was there for everyone to see. And I thought drink and drugs were my problem. They weren't. They were my solution. They were merely a symptom of my using. The problem was me. The problem was who I was as an individual and what I chose to do. And over that period of time, I was in real pain I'd never felt before. And then on the 8th of September last year, I planned to take my own life. I was within an inch of doing it. I'm no grand gesture in this. I planned to just throw the car into a wall. I thought, oh, that's all right, because the family will get my insurance money. They're better off without me. All of those, again, selfish thoughts. I thought I was being selfless at that point, but I wasn't. I was being selfish. And I pulled out of it. I ended up clipping the car very, very slightly. It blew a tire out, and that realization of, I can't do this because I've got these 2 wonderful children at home. I still have a wife. I still have a home. I either book my ideas up and I'm that desperate now to not use and to take this away and for it to be removed from me, that I will do anything. And I went back into that was my rock bottom. That was what hit me. And I'm a big believer that in recovery you have this was my experience, at least. I had 2 rock bottoms. I had my using rock bottom, where I thought I was going to die, and I had no choice but to come to a meeting. And then I had my sober rock bottom, and my experience of that is it's worse, and it was a heck of a lot worse, because there was no way that I could continue. And I realised then rock bottom 1 wasn't rock bottom, because all it had meant is people just got in the way of me using. and I believe I was only just starting to feel that first nip of the ringer it talks about in the book. When I came back to, I came back to Derby. I was on September the 9th. I that there was a few things I see now as spiritual experience that not using in the meeting, something stopping me, because it definitely wasn't my own willpower. The fact that as I turned the car, it popped a tire and didn't hit a wall. That was me being protected. And for the worst is still yet to come. I came back on September the 9th, and that was it for me. I was that desperate that I could not use anymore. I came to that meeting with the intention of asking someone I'd found attractive as a sponsor to come and ask him to sponsor me. And if I talk about desperation, like, there could have been pentagrams being drawn on the floor. They could have been offering lambs to slaughter, and I would have done whatever it took at that point. But I never got the chance because something came up from my past where I was arrested before, as I got to the meeting. And I'm not one of these people that's been in and out of jails and problems. And by no means does that excuse me, but I was taken into custody and I spent some time in a cell for things I had genuinely done that had come from my past, but things that weren't. I thought these problems had disappeared. It turns out I just buried them deep down, and that past caught up with me. But whilst that was the worst experience of my life, it was the best experience, the best thing that ever happened to me. I believe this was my true first realization of a spiritual experience. A bit of me died in that cell. A bit of me, it fell away, and it was easy for it to fall away. I put up no fight for it to stay, and it allowed what I believe is a higher power and God's spirit to flow into me and to give me some form of courage. It didn't protect me from taking drink and drugs at that point, but it did give me some form of courage to go and do whatever was necessary. So I got myself a sponsor, the same person I planned to ask, and that person is still my sponsor today. And I was taken through the steps in a way that was incredibly thorough. There was no cutting corners. There was no being able to rush through a step. And I'll talk about parts of the steps that really stand out for me, because some of them were just huge. Step one was like this rush of blood to the head, this wave that hit me directly in the face, because a realization that my life had become truly unmanageable and I was powerless. I was truly powerless over my ability to control my drink and drug taking. And that's exactly what it says. I couldn't manage life on life's terms. I admitted I was powerless over alcohol and that my life had become unmanageable. Now, that step for me was the first of many reality checks, because my perception of an addict prior to that day, I was still kidding myself at this point. My opinion of an addict was they're sat on the street, they don't have a home, they don't have the nicest appearance, that they're drinking from a brown paper bag, that they've got a little sign. All of these broken, rubbished, taken away. Because let's look back at that step. That step doesn't say that I had to go to jail. That step doesn't say that I had to lose my job. It doesn't say I had to lose my family. It certainly doesn't say that I had to be on the streets drinking from a brown paper bag. What it does say is that I had to admit that I was powerless over alcohol and substances and drugs, that my life had become unmanageable. And most certainly I was powerless, and my life had become unmanageable. Because for me, it wasn't about how far I'd gone. It was about it clicking that that's how far I was willing to go. There was nothing that was going to stop me from where I was going, other than turning to faith, turning to the steps, doing what's suggested, and following this thing through to the end. And I needed help. For the first time in my life, I admitted I needed help. there's other parts to this. Step 4 can be really uncomfortable. I said earlier, I became uncomfortable in my own skin. I became uncomfortable with the person that I was in that moment, and I would numb that feeling by using. And I had to go back and face that. It took me a good 4 weeks to go through all of my step 4. Not through a lack of effort, because I believe that was God's will for me to take some time to go through that and to be able to genuinely face myself and what that meant. My amends, not all of them, some of them I've not been able to make because those people don't want to, and I do not want to cause those people harm today. I some of them went great. I have better relationships with with some people that I've made amends to than I ever did before. I look at the relationship I have with my wife. It's better than when we first fell in love. It's because it's true honesty today. It's true honesty. And that all comes from having a connection with God. If someone had shown me what my morning routine is today, I would have told you that it was deep faked. It was AI. There is no way that I would be rolling out of bed and onto my knees and handing my will and my life over to the care of God. But I have to, because the reality for me is if I run the show, if I'm the actor, if I'm the director, if I'm that person doing all of those things, I am doomed, and I'm doomed to a life of chaos, and that's where that will go. It says there's a bit in the, I appreciate that it's not a religious program, but there's a bit in the Bible that says, it's James 1:12, blessed is the one who perseveres under trial, because having stood the test, that person will receive the crown of life that the Lord has promised to who love him. All that says to me is, and it emphasizes that trials and these issues, the things that I've gone through, will be faithfully rewarded and promised by God, that He will keep me safe and protected. Those things don't come quick. It takes time. It takes time to build up your faith. It takes time to embrace the promises of this program: peace, serenity, freedom from regret, improving relationships with people, being useful again, feeling useful again, because there's a big difference for me. And outside of, there's two things. This program does not work without two things: getting honest and becoming willing. My sponsor made me promise him three things when I first asked him, and it was that I'd be willing, I'd be honest, and I'd show up. That is one promise. That I'd get service at meetings and I'd continue to go to meetings. And the third and final was that I would help another person at the end of this program, and I would give this away so freely as I was giving it. So the outside of faith and building a connection with your higher power, getting honest and becoming willing to follow the program completely without reservation, because the second you question a suggestion, it won't happen. The second you question whether something is, do I need to go through it, you're not going to go through it willingly. Those are the two things that make this program consummate successfully. Do you know, I'm very grateful today. I've had a great week at work, and I've had a really lovely week with my family, and we've got a dynamic at home today that really works. And but I'm grateful to this program. I'm grateful to CA. I'm grateful to my sponsor. I'm grateful to the steps in a fellowship which gave me a life I believe I never deserved. I was catapulted into the fourth dimension, and I realised what true peace meant and what happiness was for me. And this, I don't believe, gets said enough in these, so I'm going to really emphasise this point. When you're picking a sponsor, like really give that some thought and consideration, because you've got to want what they have, not the material things. You've got to want to live the way in which they live their life. If it is somebody, then you're just picking a sponsor to get to the steps. it might not work. But if you take some time and you pick somebody because you find them attractive as a spiritual partner to be able to go through this program with, and they will take you through it to the best of their ability and the way that they were taken through it, you've got a pretty good chance of this stuff landing and it working. It's said to, if I go right through, I mean, look, but I'm sat here giving out and talking about this. Never did I think I would be sat on something like this and giving out, being able to share my experience. And I have to really humble myself in this. God gets the glory. God absolutely gets the glory for this. I did none of this because I tried for a long time to stop on my own, and I got nowhere. Because for me, my higher power and God has truly delivered about on the promises. I was amazed before I got halfway through. I know a new freedom and new happiness. I don't regret the past. I understand the word serenity. I know peace today, and it doesn't matter what I did. My experience today benefits other people. I'm not useless anymore. I'm not pitiful towards myself. I can take myself out of myself, and I'm certainly I'm not selfish anymore. I can be. I'm guilty of that. But I'm not. It's not my first character trait that comes out, and everybody can see it. This is all about sometimes quickly, sometimes slowly. We can't will our way into recovery, and we certainly can't will our way out of it. We've got to make sure that we work for these things. They will always materialize if we work for them. So what's life like today? Life today is I understand what content means. So the dictionary definition of content is in a state of peaceful happiness. And what am I content with today? I'm content with very little. I talked about perception earlier. During my using, I would use material things. I would use cars, a nice hat, all of these things to be able to show people I wasn't an addict. But I realized in all of those things that they're not important to me anymore. Content with little. I'm content with being able to follow a program and have the love and care of God on my side. I'm content with having a beautiful and loving family behind me that support me and a group of friends that do that. And I certainly am content with where I am in terms of CA, this and the fellowships that I go to, and being able to give this gift away. It's a beautiful process that you go through. I mentioned it earlier, but you would not have caught me doing this 12 months ago if you weren't giving me a bit of money, or I would not be coming to give my experience away. If I hadn't have gone through this, and let's remind everyone of who I am. I'm an addict from Derby that will lie, cheat, steal, and manipulate, and take things away from his children. I will steal opportunities away from my family. If I allow myself to be run on my own self-will. And I have to remind myself of that every morning when I get on my knees, that's what I'm capable of, and I want to be as far away from that version of me as possible. And today I'm grateful for the chance to help other people. I build this into my routine. I build it into my working day. I sponsor, that the sponsorships. I'm going through it with a sponsee at the moment, and I've learned so much the second time around, so much, because there's things I didn't pick up on the first time and I pray that I continually have that opportunity to learn every time I go through this process. I still make mistakes, right? I don't work a perfect program, but today I do have the tools to deal with situations that I couldn't before, things before they get out of control. So really, the steps are simple. They're very, very simple statements and sentences, but they all have such a huge effect on your life and on who and what we are as people. So the only thing I'll close on this. If you're on the edge, if you're teetering on the edge, go in with 2 feet, jump into that recovery, put half as much effort into recovery as you did to acquire drugs, to use them, to conceal them, to hurt, lie, cheat, steal, and manipulate other people like I did. Put half as much effort in, and you'll be convinced that this works. You will be convinced that there is a design for living, that you will be happy, and you will finally become happy in your own skin, because that's what's happened to me today. So yeah, I'll leave it there. Thank you.
Oh, that was great. Thank you, Matt. Great to hear. What a pleasure. That was great. It was really the way that was Bob on share, and appreciate you sharing your encouragement and inspiration and participating in our recovery and supporting us in our journey, in our process. Wonderful. So just brief intermission, folks. On the screen is information about meetings. There are hundreds of wonderful Zoom meetings where you can hear folk just like Matt share their experiences, strengths and hopes around sobriety, what it was like, what happened and what it's like today. Me and Matt are occasionally found on a meeting that's on 3 times a day called Week of Recovery, 2 o'clock, 8 o'clock, 9:30, every day, all year round. Public meeting, everyone's welcome, it's open. That's the login number there at the top of the screen. Bear in mind you can pause, rewind, fast forward and share, like, subscribe and comment on this podcast if you so wish. The reason why this screen's epic, which you could pause and screenshot if you wish, all these meetings are on every single day. The UK Samaritans number's at the bottom right, as is the CA UK helpline. So there's lots of meetings. Now, you will not be required to put your camera on in any of those meetings, nor will you be required to even speak. So you can simply come along and listen if you so wish, as often as you wish. Also, we've got current male and female sponsorship list. Matt, very gracious to mention sponsorship. It's a strong suggestion to get a sponsor and go through these wonderful 12 steps. So if you're interested in sponsorship, let us know. We've got men and women that are available currently to take you through these wonderful 12 steps so you can recover from what is really a hideous self-centered delusion. That of drinking and drugging. A sponsor is someone that's got a working knowledge of the steps, program, meetings, fellowship, literature, and is willing to take the time to take you through these 12 steps so you can recover from what seems to be a hopeless state of mind and body. So with all that being said, I appreciate you, Matt. That was Bob on. Yeah, there's a lot in there. Some similarities in our story. You know, I worked through most of my using. It was mostly homely with acquaintances, but getting in the supply game, larger quantities, not like Pablo Escobar quantities, you know, but several grand a week and, you know, and that kind of thing. But I was my best customer, you know, and it was just self-medication, Matt. You know what I mean? Really, I still have the wounds, the feelings, but just self-medication. But you know, it seemed like a good idea at the time, but it's just not tenable. You know, and that's where it's at for me. That's step one. You know, step one's practical and moral. That is to say that the first half, step one's very practical, that we're powerless. You know, and that's got 2 prime features. So I suppose 3 as you get deeper into the program: spiritual, mental, physical. But in the first step, it's really the mental and the physical that we're looking at. That is to say, the thinking of an addict works hand in hand with the physical problem, i.e., if I ingest any alcohol or other drugs, it will set off this phenomenon of craving, and together with the mental obsession, will work to ruin everything, you know, to destroy everything good. And the results of that physical and mental problem, malady, allergy and illness, if you like, or disease, is a world of crap. You know what I mean? A load of negative, untenable, and wanted circumstances that we call unmanageability. So the first half of the step is practical, the physical and mental problem that produces the second half of the step, the unmanageability. And that's moral. Why is it moral? Well, I've got to take a real sustainable look at that, Matt, and say, do I really want to be producing all this? Is this really where I want to be? Is it truly unmanageable? Because if I deemed it wasn't, guess what? I'd be off back to the dope, man. See, so I have to maintain the truth, because the human heart without God's spirit is incredibly deceptive, or credibly deceptive. The human heart is deceptive, you know, and you know, and so we have to maintain the step one, maintain the truth of the step. You know, there's a reason why they spend up to 2 months in NA doing step one. I think it's well worth a handful of hours to study and to understand and to share why you're working and you're maintaining the truth of the first step. You know, so So that's where I'm at, you know what I mean? And the reason why I'm at that is because most days I'm with a man or a woman working step one, you know, and sometimes they've got dire straits. So none of us are experts, are we? You know what I mean? It's just a case of being experienced, doing what you can. Anyway, we do have a few minutes left, so I just wanted to ask you, you know, you mentioned there about sponsorship and the value of getting good sponsorship. You also mentioned that you had a thorough process, and then you also mentioned that you're working with others. So I just wondered if you wanted to take a minute or two to share about the virtue of sponsorship.
Absolutely, thank you, Paul. So it's sponsorship's beautiful. It truly is. Somebody gave me this for nothing. I didn't share this in the share, but like when I first wanted to get out of this, I sat in front of psychiatrists and psychoanalysts and all of these things and paid good money to them. The problem was I was using around it. I was using on the way. I was using after. I was lying in there. Somebody that has, it doesn't matter their educational background or what they came from, but what they do have is they had a way of life that I wanted to live. And they gave that to me so freely. And I spent time looking for a sponsor. And at that point I decided who I wanted that to be. And that came down to a few core components. Do they live in a way which I would like my life to be? Do they live by the right principles? They have the right morals, and how do they keep those? How do they keep those happening? And you know what? Is it somebody that I can really relate to? Because honesty, I said it, honesty is so important, and you will have to get honest with your sponsor. You will sit in front of them in a process, or whether that be on video or in person. Mine was in person, and you will tell them your deepest, darkest secrets, because this program doesn't work without that. You will tell them things about yourself that you've never told to another human being, and that's why sponsors are so important, because for the first time in a long time, or maybe ever for some people, you'll get honest, and they will enable your ability to be able to do that because you'll feel comfortable around them. So take your time on sponsorship, take your time to pick the person. Today, I'm so thankful I get to give this away. If I could bottle it up, I wouldn't sell it. I'd give it away. I'd give it to people. I want to see this problem solved. I want to see people recover. And sometimes I'm guilty of trying to really push this towards people. And I realized that when I was going through the latter part of steps 10, 11, and 12. And today I realized that this is attraction, not promotion. This is about people have to be ready, because the ability to get honest, the ability to become willing, the ability to do these things mean that everyone's process is individual. It's a journey. Whilst we may all suffer with the same illness and disease, our symptoms, what we use, all of them are different. Our stories are different. And I've been grateful to be asked a couple of times to take people through these steps. And I pray that I am still attractive to some people as a sponsor and as somebody that can help them to get a life that they might not, like I did, thought that they could get hold of. So sponsorship is so important to me. It's the fundamental and foundation of this program. You look at some of the stories in the latter part of in the book, and Bill had this chance to drink, and he didn't. He called and he created his first recovered person. He helped that person when he didn't have to. And that's what the willingness continues, because I have to be willing for my sponsees today. I pick up the phone if I can ignore work calls. I can ignore a call from a mate where I know he's going to moan about the wife. But I can't ignore a call from CA fellows today. I can't, because that might just be my chance to help them on that route and share something with them that will give them the courage to be able to go through this. So I think sponsorship's beautiful. I think it's a fundamental foundation part of this program. And take your time picking somebody, because I promise you they will be part of your journey, and they will help you to get to this life you didn't think you could achieve.
Wonderful. Thank you, Matt. Yeah, I find sponsorship very valuable. and it's wonderful to see the miracles. From time to time, it can be challenging. I'm on my third or fourth go around with a man at the moment on step one. I'm certainly not an expert, but I do have about 5 or 6 different ways to take folk through the steps. And the last step one we did was like a grade 4, as it were, on a 1 to 5, 5 being the most intense. It was a fairly intense step one we did last time. And now we're back in the ring to take another swing. So, I'm going to try. We're doing some fresh questions that I have. And so and it can be tested. What I find the most testing is folks not keeping mutually agreed appointments, because they have a schedule and what have you and other things to do. But it's a test of grace, you know what I mean, and just test where you're at. But the miracles, the phone calls, sometimes because folks do vanish, folks do recover and then they get new jobs, new relationships, they move, they go to different meetings, sometimes they change fellowships. And getting calls from folk, I just want to let you know, I'm 2 years, or I'm 1 year, I'm 4 years, things are great, I want to thank you, and it's just amazing, the miracles I've seen, Matt. I really have seen families reconcile, the men and women get their families and their children back, folk on the verge of opting out, learning to opt in consistently, folks recovering from a lot of complex alcoholic problems, emotional, mental, and physical problems. And most folks enjoy considerable recovery emotionally, mentally, spiritually, and financially once they clean up. But we really need everyone to get through the steps and learn how to take other steps. I mean, even in its simplest form, opening up the doctor's opinion and reading a page and then having a chat about it, then reading the next page and having a chat about it, you're not going to harm anyone. If they pick up again, that's on them, totally on them. You're not going to harm anyone reading a book with them. If it's your first time, you can simply read through the first 103 pages, with the person. You can have them check out the step out the 12 and 12 in their own time as a supplementary experience. Why wouldn't you have a sponsor who do that? It makes sense. Have them do a podcast on the step in their own time that can, at the same time as you're working the steps, in order. And it enhances their experience, So on this YouTube channel now, there's a podcast, What is Sponsorship in CA? There's another one, Am I Ready to Become a Sponsor? And there's a third one, How Do I Sponsor? And then 2 months ago, I had another 3, just brief ones, half an hour, 25-minute podcasts on the doctor's opinion sponsorship and what we need to establish when you have to contact someone that's looking for sponsorship, and how I like to work step one, using a consequence list, the doctor's opinion, and depending on the individual, I'll then also proceed to rebuild story, and if necessary, carry on, because the first 43 pages of our basic text, Alcoholics Anonymous, is largely about the first step. There's elements of step 2 and step 3 in there. So if you see the program as being the first 103 pages, as many do, well, 40% of that is largely about the first step. Even if you see the program as 164, a quarter of that is largely about step 1. So it's a pretty important step. And I believe it's the hardest step, Matt. Why do I say that? Well, how many years did it take you to get one? An addict dies every 6 or 7 seconds without having one. And, and those that arrogantly boast of being given step 1 or doing 1, 2, and 3 in a quarter of an hour, usually it took them years to arrive at step 1, so, and it's the only reason folks pick up again, because they lose it. They fail to maintain the truth of it. So I think it's really important. And sponsorship's a wonderful thing, and so there are resources on the channel about sponsorship. That's the point I'm making, because it's a bit of a grey area. Folk sometimes churn through, present company accepted, churn through the 12 steps and commanded to sponsor, and they've barely got a Scooby out to do it. And that can be a problem, While conversely, there are a lot of experienced men and women. As I say, we maintain current active sponsorship list of folks that I've known mostly for years that I trust. None of them are perfect, but the folk I trust in terms of sponsorship. So my message to anyone listeners, if you're looking for someone to take you through his 12 wonderful steps, let us know. So in closing, I just want to thank you, Matt, for taking time and to honour you. That was really, really good of you. What a phenomenal message. Is there anything in closing you'd like to perhaps take a minute or two to say to our listeners?
Nothing crazy. Much more pointing back in the direction where you were there, Paul, because I came to this channel before I even attended the meeting. I came to this channel to help with certain things within my steps, and there's some wonderful resources here. When I was first looking at my step 4, I did a lot of listening, watched a lot of videos of how other people interpreted it, and it helped me no end. And even going through them, the step 9 material and other parts to this, there's so many wonderful resources that are available. But again, it's got to come from willingness. It has to come from somebody wanting this. We can't will ourselves out of recovery. We can't will ourselves into recovery, out of the problem and into the solution. We have to rely on following some simple steps, by following a program, by doing as is suggested. They're not really suggestions; they are openness to say if you continue, they will work for you. And that for me has been my experience. But there are some wonderful resources available. There are some incredible people that are recovered or even going through recovery. I don't throw my clean time around anymore, because to me it's irrelevant. It's how spiritually well I am. It's how can I balance that within my life, because I am a bad day of not following this program away from, and it might not happen in a day, it might not happen in a week, and it might not happen in a month, but I am humble enough today to say I can go back to that life. I could, but I choose not to, because I have God on my side. I have a higher power, and I have people. When I struggle, I reach out to them, pick up the phone, speak to people, reach out to your fellows, because we all know that penny drop saying. I've heard it happen on the phone. I've heard the penny drop for people and watched them recover and flourish as individuals. Not because of what I've told them, but because of what God will have me be, and because of what I give over in the morning and how that makes me useful to people today. So pick up the phone, reach out. If you're struggling, reach out, because that's the first step. It's having the courage to be able to walk into that room. Fear will sober us for a bit, but afterwards it's action, it's willingness, and it's honesty. And I just want to thank you again for the opportunity to do this, Paul.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Thank you so much, Matt. What a powerful, powerful broadcast. That was really epic. Yes, yes, yes. Morning devotions, staying in prayer, maintaining and participating in a sober network. These are the vital characteristics for me, as you say, consistency. I appreciate you, Matt. Thank you for being here. Okay, family, stay safe, stay strong. Check out the other broadcasts. Feel free to comment, like, share, subscribe, and all that good stuff. Come to some meetings. It is possible to recover, and it's a great way to live. Thanks, Matt. Okay, everybody.